today's objective is to provide the understanding of Splunk indexes, how to create and maintain indexes in Splunk, and also how to add users and roles and the authentication of a user if you want to create a new user. So this is the new module, managing index and users. So yeah, here we will understand Splunk indexes, index maintenance and optimization, the user roles and authentications. So the first one is Splunk indexes. So let's discuss about what are the indexes and how to create and use indexes in Splunk. So indexes are basically Splunk internal database which it creates to store data from different sources. So once we input any data, we need to create an index for that. If we won't create an index, then it will go and store that data in main index, which is the Splunk internal index. So we always recommend to create a new index for any new input. If it is a similar kind of input, then we can create the same, we can add that data in the same index. But if the inputs are different, like sources are different, then we always recommend to create a new index for those inputs. So let's see now how to create a new index. So, this is the Splunk home screen as we discussed earlier. So we go to settings and then go to indexes. It will open the indexes screen. You will see here that these are the internal indexes of Splunk, like main underscore internal history. These are all internal indexes. So if we don't specify an index for our input, then the data will automatically go into main index. So let's create a new index just to show how to create a new one. So let's give the name as training underscore index. So here you can specify the index name. The next option is home path, the cold path and hot path. So if we don't specify any path here, then it will go and store this particular index on a default location of Splunk. So, but if we want to change the location, we can change from here. We can provide the different directories or different file path where we want to store the new index. The next, we will talk about this cold path and hot path after in the later of the session. Here the next option is to provide the maximum size for this index. The default size is 500,000 MB. So we can also change this size if we want. If we think that our index, our data will be too big and we will get more data in this particular index, then we can change the maximum size of a particular index from here. Also, there is another option, maximum size of hot, warm or cold bucket. We can also change this from auto, but we recommend to use auto only so that Splunk will work internally accordingly. So the next one is frozen archive path. So if we want to archive our data, then we specify this path, frozen archive path. So once we provide this path, then Splunk will automatically archive that data after some time. So let's use the same default settings and then save. Let's close the browser and we'll open it in the new tab. So with HTTP localhost and 8000, this is the default port of Splunk as we already discussed. So it is loading Splunk. All right. Yeah, so we created an index here. Let's go and see whether that index was created. So yeah, it's created here. The training underscore index, the index which we just created, it is now showing that it is under C program files, Splunk, where, lib, Splunk, and then training index. So let's go and see the location where it was saved. It was in C. Was in C program files, then Splunk, etc. Not in etc, it is under where, and then live, then Splunk, and then here training underscore index. You will see a new folder named training underscore index. So all the data which will provide as an input, so it will come here under this folder. Let's open it and see what's in there. So there are 4 folders available. So the third path, cold path, and the home path, as we discussed, the home path is DB. So the data will go and store in DB folder first. So we will discuss about this policy later in this class. So let's move on to the indexes. So this is how we can create a new index. Let's discuss about the indexing, how it works. Basically, Splunk Enterprise can index any type of data. So when Splunk indexes data, then it wakes into the events. So it based on the timestamps. So the event processing, if we talk about, then it occurs in two stages. The first one is parsing and the next one is indexing. So all the data which comes into Splunk, so it enters through the parsing pipeline in the form of chunks. So the bytes of chunks is around 10,000. So during parsing, this Splunk breaks these chunks into the events. Then it hands those events to the indexing pipeline. So in indexing pipeline, the final processing basically occurs. So let's discuss what happens in the parsing pipeline. So while parsing, Splunk performs a number of different actions like extracting a set of default fields for the each event, like the fields are like host, source, and source type. So these are the default fields of Splunk needs to be extracted once an event is arrived. So it does in parsing pipeline. The next thing parsing pipeline does is configuring the character set encoding, and then it identifies the termination of line breaking. It also identifies the timestamp of creating them, or it creates the timestamp if the timestamps are not exist. After all this processing, a parsing pipeline forwards the events into indexing pipeline, where in indexing pipeline the following actions will occur, like it breaks all events into the segments. So those segments can be searched during the search. So we can also determine the level of segmentation, so it affects indexing and searching speed. So if you want to make our search efficient, then we can determine the level of segmentation. The next thing indexing pipeline does is it builds the index data structures, and then writes the raw data and index files to the disk. And after that, the post indexing occurs. So this is basically how the event processing occurs in Splunk whenever a new data comes into index, and then how it goes to parsing pipeline and then goes to indexing pipeline. So basically it gets data from different inputs like UDP port, TCP input, and then scripted input, and then it sends the data to parsing queue, where all these parsing action occurs, which we just discussed. And after parsing pipeline, the data goes to index queue, and then it goes to indexing pipeline, where segmentation and index building occurs. So basically, indexing pipeline stores the data on the disk, and parsing pipeline identifies the different fields, timestamps, and line breaking. So basically, Splunk stores all the data which it processes into the indexes, and an index is a collection of databases. It's a collection of databases which are the subdirectories located in this location, which we just discussed. And also it consists two types of files. One is raw data file, and one are the index files. So when we go and see the folder there again, Splunk, where, live, Splunk, and then training index, then DB. then global metadata. So see, currently there is no event, that's why it is not showing any raw data file uh, or the index file. So once we create data, then you will see that some data will come here and a new directory will be created. So let's go and add an input and see what comes into station. Go to Splunk and then go to data input. Files and directories. We will add an input using a file. So here is a file which we created earlier. So it is currently disabled. Let's go and open it. And we will change the index name here. So here is the option to change index. We can change it to training underscore index, which we just created. And then we save it. You will see here this that file is successfully updated, and it is also enabled. So that input is enabled, and it will start indexing the data under the training underscore index which we just created. Here you will see that data has arrived. There are 31 events available. So let's go and see what writes into the training index folder. So here you will see a new folder is created using hot, starting with hot. So this is the hot bucket. The buckets we will discuss later. So here you will see that raw files and index files are created. This is the raw data folder, and you will see the other things, other files available here. So basically, when we add data in an index, it creates the hot buckets, and it writes into the hot buckets. And after when the hot bucket size is increased, then it creates another version of hot bucket using v2_0 or the naming convention which it follows. So basically, Splunk comes with a number of pre-configured indexes, as we see here. These are the pre-configured indexes like main, underscore internal, underscore audit. So basically, the main is the default Splunk index. So all process data is stored here unless you specify a new index. The next index, more powerful index of Splunk and internal index is underscore internal. Basically, it stores Splunk internal logs and processing metrics. The next one is underscore audit. It contains the events related to the file system, change monitor, the auditing logs, and all user search history. So whenever you add a search, then it will go and store in the underscore audit index. So these are all internal indexes of Splunk. And the Splunk administrators can create the new indexes and edit the index properties also. We can also remove unwanted indexes if we want, and we can also delete the data from the indexes if we want to delete. Let's now discuss about the index time and search time. So basically, index time processes takes place just before event data is actually indexed. Whenever a data comes into an index, then index time process occurs, and the and it contains like a default field extraction like host, source type, and timestamp. It also does the source time customization, the index time field extraction, the event line breaking, and event segmentation. So basically it does all the event processing before it comes. So we call it an index time process. The next is search time. Basically search time happens while a search is run. Once the data is arrived and we write a search, then it happens. So the events will be collected by the search, and the different processes occurs during search time, like event time matching, the timing matching, the source. We can also rename the source type, and we can also use tagging, which we will discuss later. So this is the all index time, all about index time and search time. Let's now discuss about the indexers in a distributed environment. We can also create indexes in a distributed environment. We can forward data to an index from the forwarder. The distributed environment deployment is basically if we have multiple systems around 10 or 20 systems, then we install universal forwarders on those systems, data using some ports from those systems. We call those systems as forwarders, and then we get the data from those system into Splunk using a port. So that is called the distributed environment, and we can provide the index name there in the inputs on the forwarders, and then those inputs data will come, and there will be one search head. The search head is basically the Splunk instance where we can allow all kind of searches, and there are three parts of distributed deployment. One is search head, the second is indexers, and the third one is forwarders. So search head is basically only for the searching. The indexers are basically storing all the indexes. So that is the middle layer of Splunk deployment, distributed deployment. And the third one is forwarders, from where we send data to the indexers. And then from indexers, search head communicates and gets the data and show it on the screen. We have a universal forwarder and heavy forwarders, which we have already discussed. So we can install any kind of forwarders on the system from where we want to retrieve data.